So you can just delete that.
Okay, we're here.
Jesus.
So, we were about, what did I just say? Like 5 seconds away from me unmuting the mics when disaster struck.
I had gotten up to let Amara in the room. Because if y'all didn't hear her at the end of the last week's episode, she was at the door hollering because she wanted in. Because as Brittany puts it, she's got FOMO.
Yeah, she fears what she's missing out on.
So I get up, I let her in. I sit back down in my chair. I am always careful to try and not hit this bookcase that sits next to me because I don't want to knock anything off. Well, I sit down. I guess I hit it. I don't know what
triggered it, but
the whole bookcase.
I was like, man, now mind you have had half a gummy. And I'm like, man, that bookcase looks kind of weird. And then I see the bottom start to erode. And then the bookcase slowly descending to the ground. And I'm like, staring like, what in the hell just happened? So now I've got books stacked everywhere, photo album, because that's where I had all my scrapbooks was on that bookcase. But that's not even the funny part. Is
everything on this thing?
Everything is. I've got So everything's in the floor. Me, I hop up. I gotta get my Taylor Swift snow globe. I don't care about anything else on this bookcase, but I gotta get my snow globe. It's fine. My snow globe is confirmed safe. She's like, I definitely heard something smash. And I'm like, not my snow globe.
Nothing smashed.
Nothing broke except for the bookcase.
Yeah. But
that
now
was
I've got
crazy.
So much room for activities over here.
Yeah. Jeez. I was like, I ain't putting together no more bookcases.
Wow.
That was a wild way to start this episode.
What if that happened while we were actively like talking?
Oh my god, I don't know. I don't know. So, where do we go from here? I don't know if I can like focus. So we wanted to try something new. And we decided to do a documentary deep dive because I think you talked about it, right? Where you're like, I'm really like, hyper fixated on documentaries right now. So
specifically, like the Netflix ones that break them up in like 3 different parts.
Yeah,
I'm into it.
I'm shook. I'm just shook that happened. What the fuck? Anyway.
Let's just take a moment to breathe.
Yeah. What the fuck? What am I gonna do? I got a guest coming in like 4 days.
I mean,
I'll just be like, look, I don't know what happened.
I'm sure they'll understand.
I'm sure she'll be fine. I'll just be like, I'm not buying a bookcase till after we get back.
Look, at least it's not all stacked up in the guest room.
That is true. It's just stacked up all over in here. Where some of the crap from the guest room is going to have to come in here for when she's here too. So
just close this door. She doesn't even have to see in here. That room, don't worry about that room.
Right.
That's
we don't talk about that room right now.
That's the red room. You don't want to see that room.
Don't you know I even like got up early yesterday and like picked up in here?
A lot of good that did.
Right. So the documentary we chose for this episode it's called Dancing for the Devil, the 7M TikTok cult, which I had never heard of this before.
Me neither.
You had already seen this one.
Yes.
I had not. So
this was one of
like
never mind, that's a lie. Never mind. I'm gonna retract that. Pretend like I never said anything.
So like of course like the whole purpose of like a Netflix documentary is to like kind of dramatize it a little bit.
But also to bring light to the situation.
Exactly. But like I don't know. Like, I don't know how they used, like, some of these people's, like, maybe it's because of their, like, their public status, the way that they, like, are, and, like, their, how, like, all these videos they make are public videos.
Yeah.
So, like, I can understand how these videos are being used without
permission.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, anyway, we'll get to that. So it starts with the Wilking sisters. There's Miranda and Melanie. Melanie is the sister that's like telling her story.
Right.
They're dancers. They've been dancing
since they were little. Like their dad really showed them, you know, they really helped them along the dance thing. They started taking lessons. They were always doing it together. Like from the beginning, it was Miranda and Melanie. Like they were best friends.
Right. And then like Miranda decided she wanted to move to LA and pursue like a professional career as a dancer. And was it like a year later Melanie joined her?
Yeah.
And they like lived together. They built this brand around the Wilking sisters. They were dancing together. Like there were like people, they did that because people were like, y'all don't need to work together.
Right. Y'all can't always do things together all the time. Like you're not always going to go, like they'd go to auditions and stuff together.
Yeah.
And, you know, people would tell them, you're not always going to both get, you know, you're not always going to be together. There's not always going to be spots for y'all to go into things together. Like we only need one person. You can't do this, you know?
Yeah.
So they really kind of just started doing their own thing together.
Yeah. And kind of like built a brand around it. And then they meet B-Dash James.
Yeah.
Oh, that's his too. I was like, what is that noise?
No, we're triggered by all the things.
Right. Now I'm just like, oh my God.
What else
is that another bookcase going down?
You've got 4 right beside of you that are all very covered in things, and that would hurt.
Oh my gosh. I would cry. So the Miranda and James start like they're in a group, like they meet through social media. They end up like talking all the time. They're in a group chat, the 2 sisters and him, and then eventually like Melanie gets removed from the group chat. And Miranda and James start dating. And then he's got friends. They do crump, which is an emotional form of dancing. And I think it was Aubrey said that it was pushing God through dance. Yes. And that's what got them all involved in it. And they would go to Bible studies. As the girlfriend was like, why are you out so late? I can't get a hold to you. And then she's like, and then I found out he's at Bible study. And
this
how
was
can I be
Aubrey's girlfriend at the time.
And she's like, how can I be upset about that?
So then Aubrey introduces James, or James introduces Aubrey to...
I think, James introduced
Aubrey and Miranda.
Yes.
To Robert. And so they, you know, he was somebody else that he knew Robert. Mm-hmm. Is that where you were going next with the thing?
Yeah.
So they met Robert, and Robert's like an older gentleman, and you know, he's like,
and he's Korean.
Yeah. He's like, you know, I can manage you guys. We can start this whole management thing. Mm-hmm. I can manage you guys. We're going to get you famous.
Yeah.
But also, we're going to do Bible studies.
Yeah.
So they start this whole management company thing.
And several of them were like previously like going to church and that kind of stuff. So that's why they were like, hell yeah. Like, let's go.
So they start this whole 7M deal. And, they're having dinners, they're going to Bible studies, they're making videos, they're doing all this stuff. And so Miranda and James invite Melanie. And then I think Aubrey's girlfriend, I cannot for the life of me think of what her name was.
I can't either. I think I wrote it down at some point. I don't know. No, not Chloe.
Was it Chloe?
No, Chloe's his daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Robert's daughter.
Anyway, so they go to this dinner.
Yeah. And Melanie is like, this is sus. She's like, this is sus.
But she goes along because Miranda's there.
Yeah.
And so they're at dinner. And Robert turns to her and he's like, do you think that you're a good person? And she's like, well, yeah. And he's like, do you think you've sinned today?
Yeah.
And she was like, I mean, I don't think so. And he's like, what if I told you you've already sinned 1,000 times today? And she was like, I didn't know what to say.
Right.
And he was like, but we can fix that. And like started praying over her.
Yeah. Like, and he was like in the middle of the table and speaking in tongues is what she said.
Yeah. And was like, okay, now you're clean and you can go to heaven.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't know about this.
Right. She was like, I think it's time to skedaddle.
So then, I don't know what all you've written down.
Well,
keep going.
So Miranda and James had been previously like hanging out with her family. Like they would go, and her parents were like, even during COVID, like they quarantined with us for a while, and like we all liked each other, and then they had video of everybody hanging out. But then after that dinner party, it was Melanie, like she said you had to be invited to the Sunday church services.
Right.
And she hadn't been invited. And so she had plans to take a friend to the airport. Well, then Chloe, the pastor's daughter, calls her. Yes, Robert's daughter calls her and is like, he really feels like you need to hear the message today. Can you just have your friend Uber to the airport? And she's like, no, I can't do that.
Because I mean, like she said, honestly, like no other church is going to say that to you.
Right. And that was, I think that was when she started to like be kind of shunned.
Right. What was it wasn't like modern Christian, whatever. There was a different
Shekinah.
Shekinah. That's it.
So, Miranda was seeing her family less and less. And then her grandpa died. And she faked COVID.
Now, keep in mind that Miranda and Melanie are living together at this point. And they had one car amongst the two of them. And Miranda had been leaving Melanie at the apartment without a car for hours and hours on end.
And wouldn't tell her where she was going or anything. So Grandpa dies. They've got flights booked. Melanie's ready to go. Miranda, I'm not going.
30 minutes before they're supposed to leave.
Yeah. She calls Mom and is like, I had a positive COVID test. Now Melanie knows that this is bullshit.
Right.
And so, ends up, Melanie she goes to be with her family. So, I guess they didn't say if they did postpone the funeral, because the parents went to California to get her to go home for the funeral.
Right.
Like their parents ended up going back, like going to California. And she kept saying, like, no, I'm not going to do this. Da 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 da. And then she's like, well, and then the quote was, "I need to ask someone closer to God than you," is what she told her dad.
Yeah. Isn't that where the parents called the cops to do like a welfare on her?
I think that was after this. Okay. Because she ended up just not contacting.
But she made some kind of public post or something that said something along the lines of, "I have to grieve my own way.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm doing."
Yeah. Yeah, no, maybe it was around then because they sent, because she wouldn't respond to anybody. And they were like, well, let's call a wellness check. And then the cops were like, we went and talked to her. Everything seemed fine. And then there's that audio clip. I guess it's body cam footage.
Yeah.
But just the audio of her saying, they just don't like that I'm grieving in my own way.
Right.
And it's like, and they just were like, just don't, like, you're making a decision of something that you're going to regret later.
Right.
And then that's when her parents, like, went, and then she was like, you know, I need to ask someone who's closer to God than you are. Meaning Robert.
Right.
And then the friend who was dating Aubrey, the with the long blonde hair, she said, you know, that she would hang out with Miranda, and Miranda was like upset that she couldn't be with her family, but she wanted to be with Shekinah and like wanted to follow those rules.
Right.
And then this was when they started talking about dying to yourself.
That whole ideology just, I was like, excuse me?
Yeah. Like Kevin with his son, he was like, how do I die to my son?
Right.
He was like, how you know, that's my son.
So basically the idea here was that you basically had to cut contact.
Yeah.
You had to make it as though you were dead to these people.
Yeah.
To be able to save them.
Right. Yeah.
So that they could go to heaven and you all could be reunited later.
Yeah. Because one of them said you die to your family to save them.
Yeah.
And then at this point, Miranda is not speaking to her family at all. And like, was it before or after? Okay, so it was after. So then Miranda and James get married.
Yeah, pop up social media that they got married.
Yeah. The family found out from social media that they got married. And like her mom was like, I don't know if they're actually legally married. I don't know when they got married. I don't know anything about when my daughter got married.
And Melanie's, you know, upset because that was something as young kids that like
they always talked about like each other's weddings.
Right. And, you know, they'd be each other's maids of honor and, you know, things like that. And she missed out on the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because no one knew.
Right. So, after this, the Melanie and Miranda's parents start sharing their experience and like reaching out to other parents who have children that are affiliated with this 7M management company. And so there is Nick and his parents, who his parents are like, he's cut contact, he won't speak to us.
Bro, his mom was persistent though.
Oh yeah,
sending him pictures of him when he was a kid, like trying to show him the happier times and be like, you know, you really do need us, you miss us, like we need you.
So
she is persistent.
Yes, and like they even flew, like they took time off work, flew out to California, and went to his house every single day they were there.
Yeah,
hoping, and then finally, like. He met up with them like, I think it was very brief, and she was like, he did not look good. But anyway, so his dad said, said something that I wrote down as like, if you do nothing, nothing will happen.
Right.
So that's like the impetus for them going out to California and, trying to reach him. And like they talked to, was it the sex trafficking, like,
I think so.
government who, like, whatever. And they were like, you know, if the police go there, it can make it worse for the victims.
Right.
As far as like either start these types of abuses or increase like emotional, sexual, physical abuse that's going on. Melanie had to, in order to see her sister, she had to buy tickets to a show that her and James did.
Yeah.
And she saw her sister, like, she was like, I went to the bathroom and like, there she was. And both of us were kind of like stunned. And she's like, I told her, you know, how, like, cause she had cut all her hair off. She was like, I told her how I liked her hair and hugged her. And she said it was like hugging a wall.
Right.
Miranda met because after this, and particularly with Nick's parents and the like them going to the house every day, Robert allowed them to start meeting with their families, saying, you know, to keep them out of our hair, you need to see them at least once in a while.
Right.
To keep them from...
He wanted, because the families were going so public with it and putting it out there in social media and things like that, he wanted them to also post their meetups on social media to give the appearance that things were fine. Everything's fine.
Like, here I am with my family.
Right.
And to kind of discredit what the family was saying.
Right.
Which I think is ultimately probably the goal.
Right.
But Miranda agreed to meet with her mom, and then she ended up, whenever mom was asking her about the Shekinah and Robert and all this, Miranda walked out on her and left.
She wouldn't talk to her about it at all.
And her mom referred to her as a shell of her daughter.
Yeah.
Melanie on there, like, because they had the Wilkins Sisters brand, Melanie was having to make excuses for like posting old videos with her, and she finally just like had to say she's taking a break from the Wilkins Sisters brand. And then we moved to, it's Miranda's second birthday that she has been no contact with her family. And James posts something because, like, she's got all of her family blocked. Like, they can't call her. They can't text her. She's got them blocked on social media, all of that. But Melanie sees James' like birthday post for Miranda. And so Melanie was like, happy birthday. And then she said within seconds, like, she watched her comment disappear and then she was blocked.
It's just crazy to me.
Yeah. So then we move to February of 2022, and Miranda's family decide to go live. I don't know if it was on Instagram. I think it was on Instagram. And the cult was very aware that this had occurred. And the former members that were interviewed in the documentary said that the energy changed. My throat's dry. And that Robert twisted, like, the families being concerned for their loved one as them trying to control their loved one when it's him all along. Now, throughout this, they did talk about money a little bit because, like, these were all dancers and they were outputting content through 7M all the time.
Right.
And getting paid and getting brand deals and like
commercials.
And commercials. Like one was in a
toilet paper commercial.
Yes, but there was also one in a car commercial.
Yeah.
I think that was James. It was either James or Concrete were in a commercial. And like dude was bragging about it. But like they had to give 10% to the church, and then they had to pay this, that, and the other. But later on in it, you find out that all that money is actually going to one place.
Right. It's all going to Shekinah.
Yeah.
Which is all going to Robert.
Right. So, the friend, again, talks about how Miranda would cry because she missed her family. And then after the Wilking family went live, Robert did a warfare prayer, and he was like, use the race card. So James he tweeted or whatever, talking about how like, oh, they were all fine and dandy until Miranda started dating a black man, and like posting stuff like that.
Right.
And then Robert was like, we need to be a step ahead of them. So he sent James and Miranda to Michigan to visit with her family and to go live confronting them as punishment for them going live and spilling the piping hot tea about Robert and his goings on. And I guess Miranda was like, do y'all mind if I record this? And the family said, no, we're not okay with that. And then Miranda and James asked them to take down all of the times that they had talked about them and Robert from social media. Mom refused, and they walked out on her. And after this is when Kevin Concrete and his girlfriend start talking about how the atmosphere within the church changed. And they started having, like, Robert would have 4-hour services, and like things became more strict, and they passed out in church service NDAs.
Yeah, so say they had to sign an NDA before they could go into service.
Yes, with no time to read them. And one of them signed it, one of them didn't. And that was when they all kind of started talking to each other.
Right.
Yeah, there were like private meetings with the pastor. And this was when members started talking and realizing, well, we might be in a cult. And it is worth noting that, like, even though this is a church and everybody's going to church, the 7M church members were separated from, like, the long-term Shekinah members.
Right.
So, like, this had been going on for years. And this is when we meet Melanie Lee. So, this is a different Melanie. She was a member of Shekinah for 10 years. Also, Miranda told her mom, I think, or her parents, take this as my rebellious stage. And she would read the Bible on live. Also, the parents went back to LA because they hadn't, like, laid eyes on Miranda in so long, and they used her videos to find her.
Get that
with the water towers and shit.
I was like, that's
I said PIs for real.
As a parent, we can pull some shit off like that.
Right.
But like them being able to, like, they're watching the videos and taking note of the surroundings.
Yeah.
They realize that there's a water tower in the background. So they Google image and they're trying to find like, Google Maps and looking at all these areas and find like this water tower.
Yeah.
And then they find like the house.
Yes. They drive around the corner and there's like, they're outside filming TikToks.
Yeah. And I was like, dang, that's some top level stuff right there.
Yeah.
That threw me.
And then we
Where's my
moved.
mouse?
I have no idea. Did it get lost in the, Oh no, it's right here behind your laptop.
How did it get there?
No idea. When the bookcase fell, a lot of things were going on.
Jesus.
So,
and now my browser's closed. What is happening?
So then we moved to episode 2. And it's titled The Escape. This is when there are a lot more articles and like sleuthing accounts and all kinds of stuff popping up about the 7M cult, right? And then, but there's like, they're playing recordings at some points of Robert Shin doing his sermons. And he's bragging about the attention from the media, like it's positive. And he's like spinning it in such a way that I'm just like, how are y'all buying this? How are y'all buying this? But like at this point, like a lot of the members are like, this is a cult, y'all.
Right.
So then we really get to talk to Melanie Lee. So she had moved on, and all of this social media attention brought this trauma back into her life. And what she wanted to know was, where is my sister? And then we meet her sister Priscilla. So,
do you go into the story on how they came to Shekinah? Or Shekinah?
Yes.
Okay.
So, kind of. Anyway. So, like, Priscilla, she was in Shekinah for 23 years. And at the beginning of her interview, she says that even though she's away from it, there's still something, like, she still listens to his sermons.
And see, that in and of itself is like, that hurts.
Yeah.
That's hard, and that's deep-rooted.
Yeah.
Deep-rooted trauma. That's deep-rooted. I don't...
Like, it's... Hearing her tell her story was difficult.
So, I'm going to equate this to say, this is not something we've really ever gone into. I mean, we've kind of conversated about it on here, but like, that made me feel in a way of like being raised in the South,
mm-hmm.
being raised in the Bible Belt.
Mm-hmm.
My family has always been like my mom's parents go to church every time the doors were open. My grandparents read from the Bible every day, like highly religious people. And my mom was raised that way. Yeah. My dad's parents, I believe, were religious, but weren't the church going type. But like growing up, it was like I had the option of going to church.
Mm-hmm.
And I would on occasion in my younger years, but once I became a teenager, like high school, I was there every time the doors were open. And so it was deeply rooted and instilled in my brain, you know, read the Bible, go to church, worship God, don't sin, pray for forgiveness, all that. And then as an adult, when I have steered away from it, it's like I catch myself wondering, okay, so what's going to happen? Am I going to find out that I should have been doing that the whole time?
Yeah.
Is that truly what's going on? And it makes me kind of sit and question it for a minute. And there are times that, like, if something is happening that I feel I need guidance, or, something bad happens and I'm like, please, help. I find myself praying.
Oh, me too. And I've been like a 100% to my core atheist since high school.
Yeah.
But like, cause like my parents also, we didn't grow up going to church. We knew like about God kind of and about Jesus kind of, but like I still to this day could not tell you much. But like, because my sister and I were talking about it recently, and I was like, and I think that probably that move, that singular decision made probably not even consciously by my parents to not force us into doing that, because I don't think that they were forced into doing that either, was probably the singular best decision they could have made as parents. Because I've heard stories about friends, family, whoever, who have grown up in the church, and some have had wonderful experiences, and I'm so happy that they've had positive, happy experiences. But a lot of people have not. And a lot of people found tons and tons of trauma that they will carry with them for the rest of their lives inside the doors of a church. And I feel like we really missed that.
Right.
And I feel like not growing up hearing about it, when we took and even just a modicum, a little, interest in it, because like me and my sister both spent time at church. We went to church. Like I had, I was like, I've never been to church. Let's go to church. So I went with my friends. And I think because of that, her and I were a little bit better at sniffing out the bullshit of, I would say, not all, but 90 to 95% of the people in that church. And I'm like, that's not what's
right.
That's not what's in here. What you're saying is not what's in here. There were people that I met at that church that were wonderful. Like there's a girl who, she was our like teacher because they do at that church, they had like classes for different like age groups.
Yeah.
And so like our teacher, she went on like mission trips and stuff. She was cool. Her name was Tiffany. She was wonderful. And then there were people who I'm like, you don't need to be left alone with children. Why are you being left alone with children? And then there were people who were just all around nasty, like just not nice people. And I'm just like, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And like, I even went to church with you once or twice, I think for sure once. And like, I'm just like, this is not my scene. I can't sit here and I even pretend like I'm buying into this because it sounds so far-fetched.
I don't even remember you going to church with me.
It was one time for sure.
I don't even remember.
I think it was our senior year, maybe. It was like towards the beginning of our senior year. I was like, let me give this shit a try again. And then I was like, never mind. But,
what's even crazier is I don't even remember going to church my senior year.
It was a very early senior year.
Yeah, I guess so, because me and Aaron were still dating.
Yeah. But yeah, I went to youth group with you the one time, and I was like, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. But I think that like now I have all of that to circle back around to say, I feel like now I have a more spiritual belief system. Like, I believe that there's something. I was like, I told my sister, I was like, I still pray, but I pray to the moon, the stars, the planets, the universe, whatever. I was like, one day I might be stardust. I don't know. I was like, but, if I'm not placing the blame on someone if things don't go my way.
Right.
And I think a lot of people hide behind that.
Yeah.
And it just put a very bad taste in my mouth, personally, for me. But I think it's good to develop your own relationship with God, your faith, whatever deity you believe in, or, whatever. I think it's important to develop your own relationship with it and not a relationship that someone told you were supposed to have.
Right. But just keep in mind, like, when you enter into that, something about that topic in and of itself finds a way to ingrain itself in your brain.
Yeah.
So that if you're doing this for any amount of time, from that point forward, even if you were to fall away from it, it's still going to be
something that like dictates your actions.
Yeah. Just like, I mean, something bad happens, I'm still like, God, whoever, whatever's listening, I need your help.
Right.
I need you. Which, circling back to this, when Priscilla's saying, you know, she still listens to the sermons and things like that, like, it is still, and we'll later talk about, she went through so much in this that, like, that is just, even though she's gotten out.
Yeah. It's unfathomable. The crap she dealt with.
Yeah. But it's not something she can just be done with. Because she says in this part here, she still listens to these sermons. But she, in her heart of hearts, feels as though she's going to go to hell.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't belong to that church anymore.
Right. Even though, like, up here in the old noggin, I think she understands that that is not the case.
Right.
That she was convinced that that was the case to control her.
Right.
But as long as she lives her life in a way that is not, you know, harmful to others or whatever, that she's right with God.
Right.
So, you know, and if that's what gets her from day to day, girl, period. Anyway. So, Melanie and Priscilla's parents were, like, not really around. Like, Dad was kind of like...
Dad dipped.
Yeah. He was like...
Mom was an alcoholic. Dad
and a gambler.
Yeah. And Dad couldn't deal, and Dad dipped and left the kids with Mom.
Right. And then so Mom, like, moved the kids to America from Korea. And that was when she, you know, developed alcoholism, gambling problem. Girls were alone. Priscilla was the older sister. She didn't want Melanie to really have friends at school because she was afraid that she was going to get into drugs. It was worse than drugs. Yeah. She did have one friend though, Marquis. And Marquis, so Melanie started going to this church first. And then she was like, hey.
With other kids that were like her. Because in that time, it was like all the Korean transplants joined this church.
Yes.
The
and it was like, and she said, like, historically speaking, like, Koreans do practice Christianity.
Right.
And a lot of them do go to church.
And so they would all join this church. And it was a way for them to all get together and have this religious time, but also eat traditional foods, eat, you know, Korean food, like real Korean food, and share that time together.
Right. I think that, like, at some point, like, this started innocently, but because all things innocent become tainted at some
got
point.
A hold of it.
Right. So Melanie was a regular first. She had invited her friend Marquis to a church service, and he said he felt like he was being recruited, and he was like, no.
Instantly was like,
yeah, he was like, no, this is not my vibe. He's like, good for y'all. He's like, y'all look like, he said Robert acts like he went to a black church, is what had the way he described it. And he was like, and, you know, they're full of the spirit, you know, people are up, running around, doing, you know, and there's video also of the Shekinah church service. And then was it Melanie? Yeah, it was Melanie. Had a rash.
Yeah.
And, like, they kept giving her, like, rubbing alcohol to put on it.
I guess something. In hopes that it would dry up.
Yeah.
and go away.
And it was like painful. It was like around her eyes. It was probably
All
pink
over her
eye
head.
or something.
Well, it was on her head too.
Yeah, probably maybe eczema. But anyway, so they gave her like rubbing alcohol, and then they were doing baptisms.
Yeah.
And like he dunked her in was it the ocean?
Yeah, they were at a beach.
Yeah. And
was it California then?
Was it California? It might have been. I don't know.
But it was at a beach. It was at the ocean.
Yeah. So he dunked her in the water, said she was saved, and then her rash cleared up. She was like, I think it was maybe like a combination of the water and the rubbing alcohol, but this fueled the fact that he was a healer.
Right.
And like he
took the credit for it.
Yes, he took the credit for her being healed.
But let's just be real. Salt water heals all the things.
Well, he would tell them to not go to the doctor and to heal thyself. But you know the kicker? This man is an MD. This is a medical doctor. I said, hold up, wait a minute. What?
Right.
Oh, and this was something that Priscilla talked about, was he would tell the followers about hell in detail. Like he would talk about different like he would describe torture and all this kind of stuff to scare them into being like, I don't want to go here.
Right.
Well, eventually, I guess because mom is like just not around, Melanie and Priscilla move in with them, and like they're like, I don't know, they would have these houses all around
that Shekinah owned.
Yeah, that Shekinah owned.
But they would have to pay to live in.
Yeah.
By working for Shekinah.
Right. For nothing. And the first house they lived in, they called Glory Girls. They moved every 6 to 8 months. The housing assignments changed all the time. And then eventually Melanie and Priscilla are separated.
Yeah.
And not allowed to speak to each other. They're not allowed to like share a room. And Melanie was like, now all of a sudden I'm sharing a room with a stranger. And Priscilla, I think, is the one that said it was weird. They thought it was weird, but were appreciative of what Shekinah was giving them.
Right.
Oh, and the mentor system? Weird.
Yeah.
Which they still do. Like, it's still something that they practice within the 7M thing. With obedience being... I just did, in quotations, obedience. I don't know why. Oh, the right-hand man, Daniel, who'd been with Robert since he was like 3?
Yeah.
3 or 5, something like that. Snitches. Everybody snitching on everybody.
For sure.
They were like, you can't do or say anything to anyone because it's going to be reported and it's going to get back to Robert and then you're going to be punished for it.
He would call them out in sermon.
Yeah.
Like specifically make them stand up.
Yeah.
And say, this is what they did.
Yeah. And then he put young people to work. And like their target were like low income individuals, and immigrants were their biggest targets.
Right.
They're the most vulnerable. Oh, and Priscilla, because Priscilla became a realtor.
Yeah.
And was like dealing in the property aspect of, and she like climbed the ranks and was like one of the top people that worked for Robert. But she still only got like $100 every week, despite all of that.
Right.
And the sister, Chloe, she's the daughter, Chloe.
Yeah.
She got checks for Priscilla's bank account. and made Priscilla sign all the checks, like preemptively.
Right.
And then Priscilla would like check her bank account, and it's like paying other people. She's like, it's like paying like somebody's Home Depot bill.
Yeah, that's what she was saying. Somebody's Home Depot bill was coming out of it.
Yeah. She was like, you know, it's checks for this, checks for somebody's rent, checks for somebody's bills, you know, and all of this. But Robert, you know, would say that they're blessings. And then there was his Millionaires Club. And I made a note, pipeline to 7M is crazy. So with the Millionaires Club, like the goal, Robert has wanted to be famous. That has been the number one goal. Is he doesn't care why people are talking about him. He just cares that people are talking about him.
Exactly.
So, like, he had this show called The Millionaires Club where he gave out shitty advice to shitty people about shitty things. And, like, because this didn't work out for him, he found other ways to be famous, even if he's using other people to do it.
He had Daniel was in a couple of in a couple of shows.
He made a couple of movies and like listed himself as an executive producer on movies that his son, but his right hand man Daniel were in, and they went nowhere. But then, out of nowhere, Daniel and Chloe leave. Yep. They're like, bye. And I think they're married.
And in the meantime, Melanie gets out.
Yeah, like Melanie's been out. Yeah.
She had a friend come get her.
Yes.
Because she was supposed to move again.
Yes.
Is that later on or before?
I think so. It was later on.
Oh, okay. So I'm skipping some things.
Yes, okay. That's a little bit later on.
Okay.
So that's when there's a turning point, and all of these little 7M members that are talking, and they're like, bro, we're pretty sure we're in a cult. They finally are like, we gotta go. So a bunch of people stop working with 7M. So because of all of these allegations, which means that these dancers are no longer getting the sponsorships. They're no longer getting this, that, and the other. And they're like, it's time to go. Half of them stayed, and of those that stayed included Miranda and James and Nick.
Yeah.
This was when Nick's family flew out to visit him, and Robert framed this visit as an attack and encouraged him to meet with family undercover, cutting them out. So instead of, this was when he started encouraging everybody to like start reaching back out to your family. But it was like undercover cutting them out by let's go, and then threaten if you talk about this, I'm cutting you off.
Right.
So Nick's parents receive a message to meet. And as soon as his mother saw him, she knew he was being mistreated. She was like, they're not being nice to my baby boy. And then Miranda, to her family, they start like spending more time together. But anytime that Robert was brought up or 7M was brought up, she would blow up. And as long as they continued to appease her, they're not really fixing anything.
Right.
So this was when Miranda's family meets with Melanie, the other Shekinah member, former Shekinah member. And she even tells them, like, you're screwing up by just appeasing.
Right.
Because you're not appeasing her. You're appeasing Robert.
Right.
And so this was when Melanie, it reverts back to 2008 when they're in a church service and 6 girls come in storming in with Caroline, which is Robert's sister. At first I thought it was his wife. because I think they said that was his wife, but it was his sister. And they come in screaming into the service about Robert sexually assaulting them. And they said that he would solicit sexual favors, promising them the position of his wife, which was already filled. And then when confronted, he would say that they were tempting him.
Because in his mind, men in the Bible had multiple wives.
Yeah.
And that was okay.
Right. So in the church service, in front of everybody, he asks for forgiveness. And because of that, not as many people left.
Yeah.
Like, people left. But because Priscilla said if nobody would have left, or if he would not have asked for forgiveness, everybody would have left.
Yeah.
But people were touched that he could admit his wrongdoing in front of everybody and ask for forgiveness. Catherine left with the girls, and with Catherine went all of his employees, all of his young workers. Priscilla stayed. And that was when he began making advances towards her. And she called it paying her price. They began with massages. Was it her? Or was it another girl that said, like, he would blindfold her and make him massage him. And then when she touched him, he was fully naked. He referred to Priscilla as his mistress. He asked her to be his mistress because he was married to, who was he married to? I don't remember who he married.
I don't either.
Hannah.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So at this time is when Melanie tells Marquis, hey, I gotta get out of here.
They had a plan that she was leaving anyway. And so they had planned for a certain day.
Yeah.
And then Robert was like, we're moving everybody around again.
Yeah.
And she was like, now's my time.
Yeah.
Here's my window. So she calls Marquis and says...
And there was also... She was home alone.
Yeah.
At this point, too.
So she calls Marquis and she's like, I need you to come get me right now.
Yes. So Marquis shows up with a bat and a van. And he was like, I didn't know what I was going to do with the bat, but I had it in case I needed it.
Right.
So Melanie, the plan was to go get her sister. She was like, I don't care if I've got to drag her kicking and screaming out of that house. I'm coming to get her. And that was when somebody that she lived with, one of her roommates, arrived back at the house and blocked the van into the driveway. And Marquis gets his bat. He's like, it's my time to shine.
Right.
And who was it? Did he just tell them, like, because he said, get the fuck out of my way.
Yeah.
And the car moved, but Melanie was like, it's too late. I'm not going to be able to get her.
Yeah.
But she called her, and
I think it was even stated that they had called Robert, and Robert said, if they want to leave, let them leave.
Yeah, I think so. But she called Priscilla and was like, I'm on the way to get you. And Priscilla was like, no, you're not me. You're not coming to get me. She's like, So Robert ended up telling Priscilla that Melanie wronged him. She betrayed him by leaving. I did note that Priscilla hated the sexual relationship, the forced sexual relationship. And every time she would have to meet with Robert, like, she started feeling sick. And every time, which it's anxiety, it's the trauma, it's all of that. She said each time, she would get more and more sick each time he came to visit her, and described herself as having demons.
He told her.
Yeah, he told her that she had demons, and that was why she was sick.
They were leaving her, but it was making her sick in the process.
Yeah. So, I guess Hannah finds out that Priscilla is the mistress. Now, Priscilla doesn't want to be the mistress. Definitely doesn't want to be the mistress. But Priscilla decided, or Hannah decided, I'm gonna whoop this bitch's ass. She tears into her room. So, like, Priscilla's got printed Bible scripture all over her walls. Like, this girl is crashing out, okay? Yeah. And Hannah comes up in there and tears her room apart. Robert, knocking on a door. What's going on? Hannah. You know, whatever she's bitching about, right? He defended his wife and told her, like, it was her fault. That it was Priscilla's
Hannah had
fault.
Every right to be upset.
Yes. And he was like, this is on you. This is happening to you because of you. So that was when Priscilla said, I'd rather go to hell than stay here. And she did get out. She immediately, like, packed her belongings and she left. And it took her 8 months to see her sister, to go visit Melanie. And was just like, where do I go from here?
It's been a struggle.
Yeah.
Daily for her. And I may be skipping some stuff, but this part just really,
Episode 3 really got me in the
yeah. There was a scene, because at this point, Melanie has moved on.
Yeah.
She's living life. She has married. She's got a kid.
Yeah.
And so the kid was having a birthday.
Yeah, this was a tough scene.
Yeah. The kid was having a birthday, and she had asked Priscilla to come. Mm-hmm. And so, like,
and Priscilla, too, told her that, I'll get there early and help you set up.
And so they were talking about it in a scene, like they'd met up somewhere for lunch or something.
Yeah.
And so apparently Priscilla was late getting there. And
to
so
the birthday party.
Melanie was upset that she was late, because she really didn't give an explanation as to why she was late. And so,
which she doesn't have to.
Right. But Melanie's argument was, anybody else that was late was like, oh, hey, I'm so sorry I was late. I had something come up, blah, blah, blah. And
I mean, even if she just walked up and was like, hey, sorry I'm late. I'm here now. Hi.
Right. But Priscilla was like, okay, listen to me.
Yeah.
You're asking me to be an aunt. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
You're asking me to want to have a love for a child that I don't know how to love.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
Right.
I would love nothing more but to be a mother, but I don't get that option. That's not something I can do.
Right. Because she spent those years that she could have done that
being brainwashed
and a subject, basically.
So she's like, I don't know how to love a child. I don't know what you want from me. Mm-hmm. So here's the bottom line. I could have shown up late, or I could have killed myself and not shown up at all.
Yeah.
Because truth be told, I want to do that every day.
Yeah.
And that tore my heart apart, because they're in the middle of, like, a public restaurant and she's yelling at her. I don't know what more you want from me. Please think about what you're asking of me.
Yeah.
Because I have been through so much, and I would, on a daily basis, think about killing myself.
Yeah.
But I don't. And you're pushing me over something like this.
Yeah.
When I sat at home,
that I showed up late.
right. And when I was sitting at home contemplating killing myself, But instead, I showed up for your kid that I don't know how to love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not anything wrong with the kid. It's just the trauma that she's been through.
Yeah.
It's one of those drip down effects of it's hard. You can't love yourself because of all the things that you've been through. Mm-hmm. So you don't know how to express love for anything else. And for what seems to be so normal for something for like you and me.
Yeah.
Like, and this may be me making a fucking gross assumption here, but I feel as though you take on that aunt role for my kids and you love my kids.
Yeah.
You love my kids.
I do my best.
But for other people...
But I will never understand why people do that.
Well, but for other people, it's not... When you've been through so much, you don't have that love to give to anyone.
Yeah. And I'm sure that it's also, too, like a big part of it is it's hard to see her sister have what she didn't get to have, but what she wants so badly.
Right.
So, and like, of course there's options for her. Like, of course she could adopt or, you know, foster or whatever.
But I think she knows that that's probably not the best for her because of what she's been through.
Also, too, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
And like, because she mentioned even like, I've never been pregnant.
Yeah.
And like, for her, that's an experience that she would have loved to have had. And that irritates me that she did not get to experience life the way that she should have. So episode 3 is when we really get into that. It's called Reap What You Sow. And this is when they really start getting into the finances. Priscilla starts throwing around talk of a lawsuit. But she needs like more than just the standard because another woman has tried to sue him before and lost. So Priscilla wants to make sure she ain't gonna lose.
Right.
So she starts talking to these other members, these 7M members that have left, like Concrete, Aubrey, the girlfriends, Kaylee.
Man, I wish, yes, Kaylee, that was her name.
Yeah. And then, yeah. So Priscilla met with them and told them her story. And a lot of them were like, whoa. Like, none of them had heard anything so foul before.
But then it was like at that point, too, things started clicking with them.
Yeah.
That some of the experiences that they had were a little something more than what they thought they were.
Yeah.
Because I think at one point when it came out that Priscilla was forced into these sexual situations, like Kaylee was like, he would give me back rubs, and it was a little different. It was a little weird.
Yeah.
But she just chalked it up to, it was just a little weird, but it wasn't anything big.
Well, before Priscilla could sue Robert, he sued her first for slander. But she said she won't rest until he loses every cent he has made off of other people. And she and her friends served him with the lawsuit papers.
That was great.
I wrote on here, watching the papers being served was incredible. I got chills.
Right.
And it's the way her little friend was like, I want to do this again.
Right. But like the way that they just beat, like they scouted out the house and they were like all with these walkie-talkies and masks and, you know, and they're like, oh, he's turning right.
Part was
he's turning right.
The white Tesla Melanie was driving and she goes to park it and Priscilla's like, you're sticking out like a sore thumb. Get closer to the curb. And Melanie moves the car and that's the camera cuts to it and the car is like sitting out in the road and Priscilla goes, yeah, that's perfect.
She's just tired of messing with it.
Right.
And then, like, so they follow him.
Right. They follow him, and they almost lost him because he ran a red light.
But it wasn't like he knew he was being followed.
He didn't know he was being followed.
He just ran a red light.
Did that. And he goes to a Korean restaurant.
These people that don't know this man from nothing.
No.
They're just Priscilla's friends.
Because Priscilla and Melanie, anybody who is like, who stands to gain from this lawsuit cannot be the ones to serve the papers.
But they take the papers in there.
And then all the envelopes are labeled, and they are calling out these people's names.
Loud and proud.
Loud, and handing, you've been served, you've been served, you've been served.
So are you so-and-so? You'll be served soon.
Yeah. And so, let's see. Oh, and because Priscilla did talk about here how she kind of feels a little bit guilty. Like, it's not that she feels guilty that she's doing this. It's that she feels bad for them because of how much time she spent protecting them.
Right.
And now here she is going after them.
Yeah.
And they know that it'll be a long legal battle. Lydia Chung was the other, other woman that sued him and lost. Oh, my favorite scene also that was definitely staged, or wasn't, I don't know, when they had them setting up their little crime board with the string, the dads.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they ate that shit up. Women started going to the police department to file a complaint against him, because the way that it works is generally if like you or I go report a sexual assault, they're not immediately going to do something, especially if it happened a while ago.
Right.
And the police will wait until, which I think is just messed up. They will wait until other people say, hey, he touched me in my no-no square. That blows my mind.
And I get, like, one of them mentioned that they didn't want to go and talk to anyone there about it because you're going and you're talking to a random person.
Yes.
You're being passed down a line just to go into a room and tell them word for word, point by point, what they did.
Yes. And because the one girl, Kaylee, who when she went to report her experiences with Robert, she said that the questioning made her, as the victim, feel like it was her fault.
Right. And she also went in multiple times.
Yes.
To give them
she
more
went
and more
in multiple times. And,
which to me kind of made it sound like...
It almost sounds like she's just like coming up with other details.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like I can understand why they would want other stories to back that up. But they kept saying, they needed more women to report him. And then they would ask, like Priscilla, I think it was Priscilla, why come out now? Why come to us now and report this? And she said, because he is still doing this. And I was like, that's great.
Right.
Write that down. Yeah, this is where their conversation was when they were talking about their breakdown in communication, basically. Mm-hmm. And Priscilla said, you're expecting me to be normal. And I made a note. She said, I lost the best years of my life so that Robert could enjoy his. And that broke me. She said that church is now tainted for her, like in general. Yeah.
100%. And that's why I also don't go.
Yeah. She said, I let them do that to me. But it shows that like Priscilla she went to Korea, and there's an interview with her father. And I said, I admire Priscilla's confidence when confronting her father, because she basically looked this man dead in the face and was like, you were a piece of shit. This happened to me because you weren't there.
Right.
And I'm like, hell yeah. And then he's like trying to comfort her, and she's like, do not touch me. Do not touch me. And like, he looks just like this sweet little Korean old man, and she's like, she's going in on him.
And he almost looked unbothered.
Yeah. And I think that's what was like kind of fueling her fire.
Right. Also, hearing, because they're speaking Korean.
Yes. So I was like reading it.
Hearing all of it
Yeah.
in Korean gave it so much more luster because it sounds angry anyway.
Yeah. It was that little bit of spice that it needed.
Yeah. But then also, so like, yes, I do agree that her choices in life could have been changed had her father been present.
Yeah. And she does tell him that, like, it's not entirely his fault because it's also her mother's fault.
Right. But then also, part of me, and I guess this is as a parent,
mm-hmm.
You're going to make decisions on your own. Now, had he been more present in her life, maybe she would have gone down a different path.
Right.
And her life would have been
she
better.
said, point blank, period, if you were there, I would have had no reason to go to that church.
Right.
If mom was there, I would have had no reason to go to that church.
It hurt for her to blame decisions that he had no part in.
Yeah. I mean, it was
pointed at him.
Ultimately, it was the trickle down of it. Like, so, because I mean, I think, hell yeah, brother.
Right.
like,
yes, for the most part, I'm with you.
Yes. And like,
just as a parent, I'm like, I mean, if one of my kids joins a cult later on, because I at one point told them anything.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't think like something small like that, I think would be like inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. But like their absences is really what led them down that path. And like he, at one point, I'm almost 100% certain confused her and her sister. Because he asked her
how long she
was in, and she said 23 years. He said, "Oh, I thought it was only 10." That was the other sister.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she didn't bat an eye. It wasn't mentioned, but I was like, she noticed that. I guarantee she noticed that. So, but I made a note that like Priscilla's fire was almost put out, but like she came in hard at the end. She ended up going and giving her statement to the police about what all she experienced with Robert. And that was kind of, there were some updates, like Nick was still no contact with his family. Miranda still no contact, like minimal contact.
I should say minimal because
it was like they were
showed
still
them doing Christmas together.
Yes,
matching PJs, making it look good for social media.
Right. Because Melanie even was like, of course, we did all of the social media things. And then there at the end, she was telling her mom, she was like, you're not helping her by doing this.
No.
And it's basically like, I don't know how much longer I can do this.
Well, and two, she talks about how Melanie is the original Melanie is getting married. And she's not going to have her sister there because she can't invite her to something like that.
Yeah.
And, her sister can't be a part of that day.
Mm-hmm.
And she is so sad about that.
Right. Well, and Concrete. So some of the dancers, they did little updates at the end. I didn't make too many notes of that, but like Concrete, he models, he's a musician and was a dancer for Beyonce.
Yeah. Kaylee went on to teach kids dance.
Yeah. And then I did a little Where Are They Now? search.
Look at you. Going the extra mile.
Yes. I thought it would be fun. I have screenshots, so I have to prepare. So, Miranda, after this documentary dropped,
I'm always so afraid to go and look at, because we'll talk about another documentary. I'm curious about their online presence.
Yeah. I didn't go look up their social media accounts.
I started to say, I'm afraid to click on their profiles, to go into their accounts and actually physically watch their videos, because that's giving them more.
Right.
That's giving them the views, and that's fueling the fire.
And that's paying them.
Exactly. And I don't want to help that.
Yeah.
Especially with this other documentary that we're going to get into some other time. But
so Miranda said, as a result of this Netflix documentary, because the documentary, they reached out to Miranda, James, Nick, Robert, all of them for comment, and they all declined. None of them commented about this to the documentarians. But after the fact, Miranda said that she and her husband James have been stalked and followed, received hate mail and threats of violence. She did attend Melanie's wedding, which happened right before the series was released. Hold on. I have. So these are quotes from Miranda. She said, "I don't understand how my parents and my sister thought that this documentary would help me or help our relationship in any way. I have been getting together with my family for the past couple of years privately to work on our relationship, to make things right, to mend what has been broken, and I've been loving it. This documentary has made it very difficult to continue doing that. And honestly, I think that my parents and my sister have focused so much on this documentary that they've forgotten on working on any relationship with me, and that hurts. That hurts me to say." This sounds very like, this is classic narcissistic behavior. Like, flipping it around, making it anybody else's fault, deflecting. That is not my fault. But
also sounds like this was the narrative given to you to be put out.
Yeah.
I bet they're no contact now.
So, in response to Miranda's claims of threats of violence, Wilking, Melanie, told People magazine that she was very sorry that she has experienced that, because our only intent was to save her from an unsafe environment and to give her love and know that we're here to support her. She continued to denounce Shin, saying her sister's claims were the work of the pastor and didn't represent Miranda's views. She's so loving and kind and loved our family, and so for her to point fingers at us, it's just not her true self. Kalia, quote, referencing a content creator.
That was the other guy's girlfriend.
Yes. So, Kalia made a quote. She said, what's this Kalia? Yes. So somebody on TikTok made a video that was calling for an investigation into James. And Kalia said, "My issue is that you guys are focusing on the victims." Like, she stitched this video and said that you're focusing on the victims instead of the actual perpetrator. The main person that we're like really supposed to go after, referencing Robert Shin.
Right.
I think it's more important to focus on the person that is influencing him to do the bad things than the good person that is being influenced by this horrible, terrible man. And then the last update on Nick was that he deleted all socials after the documentary was released. But sources say that he is still with 7M. And this was all from a LA Times article. So, that was Dancing for the Devil. The 7M TikTok cult. I highly recommend that you still watch it, even though we like spoiled the absolute hell out of it. We obviously didn't get all of the details. These were my notes as I was making mac and cheese, as I was sitting here, I don't know, diddling with stuff. I don't know what I was doing. And so I obviously didn't hit everything.
Right.
Because it is like 3 hours of content. But I hit all the high points, and
it is really good.
It is really good. I watched it twice. So I watched the first hour and a half. And then I went back and watched that first hour and a half a second time. And then watched it all in one sitting. It was pretty good. And I'm kind of excited to do another one. So I really hope this episode hits. Regardless, you're probably going to get a second one next month.
I started to say, we may make this a series because I do enjoy this. I do find myself watching documentaries or at least listening to them play, during the day while I'm working. I have to have background noise. And so I'll throw something like this on.
Yeah.
And listen to it. I've watched a couple.
I don't typically do like things like this in the background because I like to focus on it. See, if there's a visual aspect, I need to sit and see it.
My thing is I can throw it on in the background and hear it, and then if I'm like, I heard some stuff in there that's going to pique my interest, then I'm gonna go back and watch it later.
Right.
So I'm really excited that we should make this a series.
Yeah.
And do this. So I hope you guys like it, because you may get it anyway. Also, if you or someone you know have been affected by Robert Shin
or any cult
and Shekinah, report that shit immediately.
Yeah.
Let's get this man behind bars.
Let's get this creep behind bars.
Let's get him off the streets.
I know another podcast that would probably love to deep dive into that. But anyway, what was our nonprofit?
Oh, hold please, so I can get the official names. It was nonprofit for the month is Chronic Liver Disease Foundation, as well as the Global Liver Institute.
And as per usual, those will be linked in the episode notes.
So make sure that you are following us on those socials so that you can get said episode notes outside of where you get your podcasts from. Follow us on Facebook,
Instagram,
TikTok,
YouTube.
Email us at wanderersofweird@gmail.com. Okay, bye.
Bye.